most entrepreneurial nations. We're the most resilient. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're better than any hard-working animal which gets beaten and dropped, whatever. We still fight on. Drive in Kenya on some of the roads. Life is so tough. But there are people there waking every day, putting their things out there, putting their oranges, putting their tomatoes, or somebody's sweeping, or somebody's doing this. That resilience.
When do you begin feeling like, or by the time you come back, are people headhunting you? Are people being like...
When I came, I settled. I wanted it.
I
wanted it. I really wanted it. Yes. And then after I settled for a couple of years, I became chair of the Marketing Society of Kenya. When I came back, I went for it. I was chair of the Marketing Society of Kenya. That's when we started the Brand Kenya campaign. So the year I was there, that's when we launched that Brand Kenya campaign, did the whole gambit, all the... speaking to because that was right after the rainbow election. When I was chair the year of the rainbow. You know, that rainbow election was something else.
Yep.
It was incredible. The goodwill. And we kept saying, as marketers and as a society, how do we start not being the guys who just create parties and a gala?
The rainbow elections, just so that they can.
So the rainbow election was the one when Moi left and Kibaki came in. 2002. So then I was chair. I became chair 2003. So I came back soon, actually. I came 2003. So I became chair that year. 2003? Was it 2004? I can't. Now I'm all these years emerging. So that's when we said, listen, how do we encapsulate? How are we able to capture all this amazing goodwill? All this. This is what marketing does. Why don't we start playing at a different level, at a national level, as a society? And try and figure out how we brand a nation. When I was in South Africa, for a little bit, I joined the team because the Unilever business there had gotten involved with the South African tourism to start Brand South Africa. So I'd understood the concept of how it was done. I said, okay, why don't we try and do that and try and create a brand proposition for our country, try and create a seamless, harmonized proposition for what we stand for.
And that's what we started. This is government. This is government.
Yes, and I must admit, why we were also very lucky is we got the most incredible sponsor. The Minister for Planning at the time was Professor Nyang'nyong. Brilliant mind, understood what we're talking about. So he became our advocate, making sure we engage with all the different stakeholders in terms of how do we build this proposition and everything else. So in my 1 year, I did that, and then I stopped being the chair. But then from that, I think a lot was picked up. Then we had an amazing... principal secretary for communications and telecommunications, who's actually a family friend, who's now Ambassador Professor Demo Bitange, who also was another person who could visualize, who understood these concepts. He got it. And he's the one who marshaled the fact that we do need to put together an authority that drives and manages and is able to put this on. That's how I joined the board of Brand Kenya. When it was set up, I was part of the first board of Brand Kenya, But as with everything we do in this, we look for the lower things and start doing. I don't know how much I can say here, but I think one of the most disappointing things for me is that we didn't do the stuff that we needed to do. I'd go there and find, so where's a bigger picture? But people want to talk about benchmarking trips. Anyway, and I'll leave it there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Is it possible for us to do that again in 2025 I know that time Kenya was very hopeful.
Yeah.
Would you think that something like that can then again work today?
Yes, I think it can. But as with any product, the product things has, I'm having this juice right here. If you sit down and tell me this juice is fantastic, it's got these products in and whatever else, and it's going to taste good, I do this and I spit it out.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you tell me, how you dress it, what podcast you put it on.
I get it.
It's not going to sell.
Yep.
So we need to fix a lot of things. And that's a message we used to always give, even when we're building Brand Kenya, when I'd have all those breakfasts and trying to explain the concepts around marketing. It's not about bandaging or packaging something. Yep. It's not about putting pretty packing paper around something. Somebody will open the paper. If they find the product, they'll be really pissed off, first of all. And the dissonance you create, you can't come back again. That is why we say, by the time you're telling somebody this product does A, B, C, D, it had better do it. So I think that we need to fix first a lot of fundamentals. We were lucky, for example, at that time after the rainbow, optimism were the most optimistic country. Optimism was way up there. In the world. You know, and then you start to look at all the amazing things. We did a lot of research through Jane Delorey's company. She offered the services and everything else, which tried to encapsulate what it is about Kenyans. Where is our strength? What are the biggest things? Until today, there's nothing that has changed. We've got the biggest concentration of talent in this market. Educated, bright talent. We are the most entrepreneurial people. Don't even, you know, by the time you talk MPESA and all the things that have come from MPESA, or the businesses that we've created, the fact that we're a hub of so many startups, most entrepreneurial nations. We're the most resilient. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're better than any hard-working animal which gets beaten and dropped, whatever. We still fight on. Drive in Kenya on some of the roads. Life is so tough. But there are people there waking every day, putting their things out there, putting their oranges, putting their tomatoes, or somebody's sweeping, or somebody's doing this. That resilience. And we said, these are things. And then look at our hospitality. Look at how many expats come into this country.
And don't leave.
And don't ever want to leave. We're busy complaining about the road, this, the that, whatever. Then they don't see that. So if we know these are the qualities, how do you take those qualities and wrap them now with the softer things that allow it to work? Then you can start packaging a country and saying, you know, this is what makes sense. And it's the same way when you know watermelon is good for your heart. Banana is good with potassium. We've got very sweet mango. Orange is going to give you vitamin C. Put them all together, right? And you create this juice that I have here. Now, the big thing is when you put it together, that you blended it properly. That when somebody tastes it, like, oh my God, you didn't blend. You told me it was smooth. This is not smooth. You know what I'm saying?
I get it.
And that is what we need to do as a country. We need to make sure the fundamentals and the things that bring you together, the blending, which is our policies.
Yes.
Economic reforms are in place. You know, all those things are in place. Then you're able to sit down and bring back that hope and optimism in who we are as Kenyans. And then you can start to repackage this country because it is a beautiful country. Yeah.
Man, I agree with you. I love it. Sometimes I always say, if you can't step out of this country for a few, even if it's a few days, when you come back, the things that you thought were normal, you'll really realize and be like, man, this thing that I was just taking for granted, even something small as the weather, you begin to appreciate it.
And those are the softer things. That's why I'm saying now the policy and the economic reforms, if we sort that out, these are the things that make a difference. The Kenya Millennium Development Fund, which I was made chair last year, what are we trying to do? Figure out what are these last mile things you need to do from a transport point of view in this city we call Nairobi and now metropolitan, which will allow people to get to work easier, which will allow people to do things easier, because this is what makes life easier, right? Sure, we started with creating pathways. We know everybody walks, but we never gave them a place to walk. Now the next thing is commuter. How do we make commuting easier for them?
That's where the BRT is coming.
Yes, that's why the BRT is coming. Why aren't we doing that? So BRT is one of the projects we're doing. The next thing is when you look at our train stations, there are people who are living outside. We need to get people out of Nairobi. But then if you get them out, you have to find a way of bringing them in cost effectively. So we have these train stations which are going to allow us to easily and cost effectively get people out and into the city if they need to work and things like that. So there lies the power. If you can do that and create that, then you start to transform a country. By the way, whatever anybody says about Kenya, I still believe I am a patriot through and through. I really believe in, to the point I'm making. Why are we sitting here? How many youths are there, Richie, who are creating podcasts, creating businesses, doing incredible stuff? Why are we one of the top TikTok countries in the world? How? Little old us here, economy called what? Why are we the biggest digital market? Yes, in on this continent. It is all those things that are there. Now the issue is, how do you make them work?
Yep.
And these are the things that make me sad, that we don't see that. We're so short-sighted as leadership or whatever else. We forget that our children are going to live here. Our children are. Remember, Kenya is the only place.
You don't have a plan B.
Go try applying for a visa. By the time you reach page 10 of that form, you'll tell yourself, make it work here. Yeah, make it work here. Yeah.
First of all, I love what you've said about the patriotism. Even me, I don't want to live in another country. I'm not trying to live in another country.
I want to visit.
Yeah,
for sure.
visit.
I want to. But go and live there. I have to come home. To the point we're having, I remember in our break, when you're home, you're home. There's a confidence. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense that it is my right.
Identity.
An identity. I think it's my right. I have a right to be here. You know, nobody's going to tell you anything when you're sitting here in Kenya. But I'm a Kenyan. I'm sorry. Do whatever you want to, but this is my home. This is what. Try doing that when you're a foreigner somewhere with all your papers, citizenship, whatever else. You know, you're still not. You know. Yeah. And it's a subtle thing. I think it is a very subtle thing, because I've seen people with all the papers lived out of the market, out of Kenya for a long time, and they'll praise and worship all the road works. It's clean. It's this. I go to a hospital, whatever. And then you come here and you see the longing in their eye, and that longing is from the fact that you may have nothing, but it is home.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's that it's like everything about you knows when it's home.
Exactly.
In a place where, in fact, for me, I call that feeling belong.
Yes, it's belonging. Yeah.
You get.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went then. Now did you start looking?
I didn't look. I've never looked for a job. Ooh. I'm not saying it in a.
I get it.
I'm not saying it in a cocky way or whatever else. But I've also recognized why I kept saying be noticed. Do stuff so your voice is heard. Because if people look for you, you have a higher chance of driving higher value.
Yep.
If you're the one looking, it's always tougher because you're negotiating.
Yes.
So try and find a way for people to look for you. Because if they look for you, it means they want you.
And they'll come to your
so
terms.
they'll recognize your value. And so they'll be prepared to pay for your value. So yes, I was headhunted for my next job, which at the time there were a couple of people. I wouldn't say, but I chose one, which is a brewery.
Were you ready to go?
Yes.
Were you ready to leave? What makes you ready?
The reason I was ready, remember my ambition
was
to get to marketing director. Then I sat down and said, but what's going to be next? Remember, you do a job every 3 years and you move another 3 years. I'd never done any job, same job for more than 3 years. So the next one would mean that I leave the country again. And I wasn't ready. The stage and I just wasn't ready to move again. I felt I needed to cut my teeth. But secondly, I think the other thing is I felt after that number of years, it was too safe. Everybody knew me, you've done that and everything. So I went through that same cycle when I went to the UK. Am I thinking I'm hot shit and there's nothing here? Go and test yourself in a different market and see if you actually know your stuff, or it's here, which is home. You know what it's like at home. You're okay at home. Nobody tests you, nobody raises, nobody challenges you because it's home. Where are you going? So it started to feel too much like home. And that's why I chose the tougher of the options that I had, which was the brewery.
And so East African Breweries Limited came calling?
Yes.
EABL?
Yes. So I went to be the marketing director.
At EABL?
Yes.
Okay.
It wasn't EABL then, it was more strongly KBL.
KBL?
Yes.
Kenyan Breweries Limited?
Yes.
So, from a marketing perspective, what made you think you could still do this? I mean, FMCG,
that was a challenge.
Yeah, like this.
That was actually the biggest challenge, more than anything else.